Welcome in to NFL Spotlight. We are live here on X. It is Monday, January 19. It is 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time as we go live here on the show. Divisional round weekend has wrapped up. We have 4 teams left here in this 2025 NFL season. We have the LA Rams, Seattle Seahawks, Denver Broncos, New England Patriots, and we have a 10th team changing head coaches as of this morning. We speculated about it last week here on the show when we went live. We said on the show last week live that, hey, I think Ben asked me, hey, are we done with coaching changes? I was like, I'm not sure. What if Buffalo loses? Like, I just know how these teams operate. They just start thinking about stuff. And lo and behold, this morning, the word is out. Sean McDermott is fired in Buffalo after 9 years. Brandon Beane is safe. He actually gets a promotion. We will talk about all of that, divisional round weekend recap as well, some takeaways from that, other coaching stuff as well. I do feel like there are some imminent hires on the way, including in Miami and possibly in Tennessee as well. A lot to get to here on the show. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what is going on? Are you going to ask me today if there are more head coaching firings coming up?
I literally was sitting here. I'm like, where should we start with this? I'm like, can we get 11? Can we get 11? I mean, we're starting to dwindle down because we're now seeing guys hired, but the idea of 11, like over a third of the league, like we're close to it already, with the percentages there. I'm not shocked that this happened. I felt like a lot of people were screaming from the rooftops of, hey, still haven't won anything of any significance, haven't made it to the big game yet. How surprised are you? I guess it's probably just the easiest starting point that this ended up happening.
I'm not totally surprised, and I think as that game winded down and they lost the game, and then you saw the passion from Sean McDermott of criticizing the refs and I'm standing up for Buffalo, damn it, like all that coming out of him. That's when it was like, I feel like this guy feels a bit like he needs to send a message here and he feels kind of helpless and he knows something might be up. I felt that. And then the next morning, you wake up, and of course, that Saturday night was just so crazy because there was that game, there was the Seahawks game, there was Kevin Stefanski getting hired, there was the entire Bo Nix thing going on. You wake up the next morning and you read Sean McDermott called a reporter from the plane to plead his case even more. Is like, all right, clearly, like Sean feels something here. He knows something here. And in league circles, like again, we've heard about this all of the entire coaching carousel leading up to it before any firings were made. Everyone was like, hey, watch out for Baltimore, watch out for Pittsburgh, watch out for Buffalo, watch out for Green Bay. Those are like the 4 teams everyone talked about. And of course, Baltimore got eliminated week 18, Pittsburgh eliminated in the first round. Then Buffalo was the key one where it was like, hey, that's the team where it's like, this is the most runway you're ever going to have to make it to the Super Bowl because your arch nemesis of Patrick Mahomes and some of these other top quarterbacks like a Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, all those guys are not here. This is your best opportunity to get there. And of course, the game happens. They lose. They came very close. They had an opportunity there in that game to win that game. They lose. And ultimately, it was time to make a decision. And I tweeted this out here today after the news happened. For Buffalo, Sean McDermott meant a lot. He was there for 9 years. People who remember, people who are, watched the, football for years before Buffalo's success, this team was the laughing stock of the NFL, along with a couple of other teams. Every single year, losing. It was never like this. When Sean got there, along with the GM Brandon Beane, they quickly turned it around. Year 1, they actually made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. Year 2 was when they didn't make the playoffs, and from then on, they've made the playoffs every single year. He has turned that organization into a winner. But like I tweeted today, sometimes when you are a team that is having a lot of success and you have a really, really good roster or a really, really good quarterback, a generational type of quarterback, and you're not getting to the ultimate goal, that's when owners make some decisions. And the greatest examples, there's a couple of them, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with that lethal defense with Rondé Barber and Warren Sapp and John Lynch and Derek Brooks, they fired Tony Dungy to hire John Gruden. They won a Super Bowl. You think about the Denver Broncos with John Fox when they had Peyton Manning. 3 or 4 straight years winning that division, number one seeds, all the great stuff, never made it to the Super Bowl. They fired John Fox, they hired Gary Kubiak, they win the Super Bowl in year one of Gary Kubiak. This is kind of what Buffalo is putting their eggs in the basket of here, where Sean got us to a point where we're consistently great, regular season success, making the playoffs. He won 8 playoff games. They just never got to the Super Bowl. The idea now is, could we get to a coach who's going to come here and get us to the Super Bowl? That's the vision they're doing over here. And that is the reason they make this change. Sean getting fired, by the way, changes the map for a number of teams over here who are still looking for a new head coach. I think those teams who were, still in round 1 or going into round 2 of their search are going back to the bulletin board over here and being like, hey, we got to enter Sean McDermott as well into the math equation to see if you want to bring him in as well. So a lot of ripple effects over here, but for Buffalo, this becomes another one of those really, really attractive jobs. And all of a sudden, I had someone text me today, Baltimore's open, Pittsburgh is open, Buffalo is open, 3 teams, whether with MVP quarterbacks or just model franchises. These teams are all a year late. Last year was the time to go out there and find a new head coach because the market was loaded with guys who were legit top echelon candidates, from the Ben Johnsons and the Mike Vrabels. Last year, everyone viewed Aaron Glenn as a top guy. Liam Cohn got hired in Jacksonville, only had 1 request last year. Like, that was the year to go after some of these guys who are up and comers. It does not seem like this year is flooded with new names. The first 2 hires so far were guys who were fired. That is John Harbaugh, that is Kevin Stefanski. But for these teams, they made the moves. There are now 8 openings left. 2 of them already filled. But it's a year where it seems like a lot of these hires are going to be guys who are retreads. It will not be a surprise. Again, we've seen 2 of them so far. I could see Matt Nagy getting a job over here very soon in Tennessee. That would be a retread. I think Sean McDermott could definitely get a job over here. Brian Daboll is a candidate possibly here in Buffalo. He would be a retread. Like, these guys are just coming right back over here as former head coaches, getting head coaching jobs again. And that could happen over here as well in Buffalo, who is now starting their search.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because there is, we're going to do tomorrow, we're going to do a special where we go through a lot of the candidates and we're going to talk about like the status, a lot of these very in depth. But one of the candidates that we've seen actually getting interest is they're in Buffalo already, and Joe Brady. Do you think that the Bills are going to take a long, hard look at him? Or do you really think it's like what you were just saying a moment ago, where they're going to look to go outside of the building and find somebody else with experience?
It does feel like, and again, this is so fresh right now, and Buffalo is just now starting their search. And because they're making the change now, this was really the only time they could have made it because they just got eliminated. But league rules, the way it works is if you did not interview the guys who are in the playoffs yet, you cannot interview them until those guys get eliminated. So a lot of these coaches out there from the other buildings, like the, Davis Webb and Nate Shieldhouse and Chris Shula and Mike LaFleur and Clint Kubiak, they can't even interview those guys until they're eliminated. And if they make the Super Bowl, you can't interview those guys until February 9, I believe is the date. So when it comes to outside the building, if they want to get from one of those 4 teams, they're kind of stuck right now. I think the way to look at this is offensive mind makes a lot of sense. They just went through the entire defensive mind world of Sean McDermott for the last 9 years. They saw one of his offensive coordinators, of course, get pried away in Brian Daboll, who was the OC there when they had some early success. He went on to become the Giants head coach. It makes a lot of sense to go on the offensive side of the ball. I think Joe Brady is definitely going to be a candidate. It just makes sense. He has a really good rapport with Josh Allen, and this is going to be a Josh Allen hire. The goal here is, what do we have to do for Josh Allen, who's going to turn 30 years old by the time next season starts, gets to the ultimate goal? When you have the generational quarterback, you're thinking about Super Bowls, and they have not done that so far here under Josh Allen. So I look at Joe Brady's schedule here, and I have it over here. I have a full tracker that I keep track of to myself over here. Joe Brady has gotten requests so far in Baltimore, Las Vegas, Cleveland, Miami. So he has 4 teams who have shown interest in him. So
half the remaining jobs. Yeah.
Right. So if that's the case and you don't want to lose him and there's a chance he might go somewhere else, that would make a lot of sense. So they're going to have to go through a whole search. There are rules over here you have to go through, but that is definitely a name that would make sense here. But again, I would imagine, Ben, like some of these teams who have head coach openings, like Baltimore, Stephen Bisciotti said, they're texting Lamar Jackson after every single interview.
Yeah.
This is a situation where before every interview, after every interview, Josh Allen is going to be heavily involved because this is going to be the guy they hope could take them to the place they have not gone to yet.
I mean, it has to start and stop with him, right? And you
Yeah.
have to be under the assumption, it's the joke of, hey, are you going to get another receiver for Josh? Are you going to ease the pain a little bit, kind of thing? Why not just look at Dayball?
I think he'll definitely be somebody they look at. I'm not saying he's definitely gonna get it. There's in league circles right now, just for people, Brian Daboll has interviewed in a number of places for OC jobs. He's also interviewed at places for head coach jobs. Some people view those head coach interviews to really be OC interviews. So Tennessee, for example, interviewed him for a head coaching job. People think that's really for an OC job if they get a specific candidate. So keep that in mind when all this is going on. But if Brian has a chance, who, by the way, Brian is from that area, he obviously knows the fan base, he knows Josh and everything. It would make a lot of sense. And Josh and him, I mean, they're both fiery guys. It's a marriage that makes sense. He wants to coach again. I know Brian has gotten interest from college situations and he's just not interested in that. So that's a place over here where for Brian, you're looking at a situation where it's like, I like Buffalo a lot. If I could get a head coaching job, obviously you say this is along with Baltimore, it's the cream of the crop. I mean, you have two MVP quarterbacks in the prime of their careers who are available right now for you to take over. So we'll see what they do. Again, they have not done any requests yet. They're not done any of that yet. I think yesterday was their exit meetings with all the players. Locker room clean out is either today or was yesterday. So they're still, moving on from the 2025 season. But we'll talk about Brandon Beane here in a second. He's going to be the one leading his search. And obviously, I think some familiarity with him is also going to be a big part of this as well, which we'll explain here in a second.
I'll ask the question that the internet is asking. Do you think that if this job had opened up prior to Stefanski and Harbaugh agreeing to their deals, this would have been a destination they would have been interested in?
I'm sure they would be interested in it, but I don't think as much as John Harbaugh, would probably like to coach Josh Allen. Everything I've read, and Ian O'Connor has done a great job on this, it seems like John Harbaugh was destined to be a Giant. He wanted to be a Giant, and everyone he spoke to told him to go be a New York Giant. And I think the element of not being in his brother's conference also probably played a role in all this, but it just sounds like as soon as he was fired by the Ravens, Ian O'Connor wrote this. He started thinking about the idea of wearing the Giants colors and working for that type of a franchise who, for years and years will look like one of the, top franchises in all of football. So it just feels like he always wanted to be there. And then when you get a 5-year, $100 million contract on top of it, and you basically get every single thing you wanted, and when you asked for it, I think it just made sense he was going to end up with the Giants. I don't put Kevin Stefanski in the same boat as John Harbaugh. I mean, I don't think Kevin Stefanski was getting, the pick of the litter over here when it came to his job. So he took the one that first was offered to him. It was Atlanta, and they obviously showed the most interest, and that got done. So I'm not really sure about that narrative that's going on over here. Like I saw people like, oh, they probably hope they didn't sign that. Like, I really don't buy that.
It's fun. It's a good talking point. Another good talking point, and it's something that did happen, was while Brandon Beane was not only retained, he was promoted. He's going to remain the general manager of the team, but he also gets a new title added onto that with vice president of football operations. Are you surprised that not only did McDermott leave, but we see Beane being promoted?
These two guys essentially came in together. So Sean McDermott was hired in 2017 at the start of the whole coaching carousel that year. And eventually, after the draft, they moved on from their GM, who they had at the time. His name is not coming to my head right now, but they moved on from him, which was always the plan. And then they hired Brandon Beane. Both those guys came over from Carolina. So you would think it was a package deal of both of them where their success is both of them, their failures is both of them, and whatever happens, happens. We just saw this with the Giants as well. Brian Daboll, Joe Schoen, both came in together. Both of them came in from Buffalo. One was fired, one was retained. And the reason that a lot of people believe this is happening a lot in the NFL, and it's very simple, it's pretty straightforward. When you see games during the season, they go to the owner's box, they show you the suite and everything. It's always GM, owner sitting next to each other. The GM is closest with the owner. He has built a very, very close relationship. They talk to each other all the time. They bounce ideas off each other all the time. As long as that owner likes him, it's become pretty common theme around the NFL that if that relationship is in a good place, and obviously they're talking to each other every single day, they're next to each other every single game. If the coach makes a bad decision on the field, the GM could just, lean over to his shoulder and be like, oh, I can't believe he did that. So that is, I'm not saying that's what happened in Buffalo, but that is kind of why we're seeing a lot of these situations where the GM is retained while head coaches are getting fired. I mean, there are 10 head coach openings this year in the cycle and only 2 GM openings, if I'm not mistaken. So that kind of tells you where the crazy math over here is going on around the NFL. Brandon Beane has done a pretty decent job putting together this roster. He's had some misses. He's had some bad contracts. It has not exactly been all perfect and everything, but this team, like we said, has been in contention for a long time, and ownership believe that this is a person who they want to continue running the entire operation. Giving him more power, it's basically up until now, Sean McDermott would report to the owner. Brandon Beane would report to the owner. They're just changing the chain of events right now where the head coach who's coming in is going to report directly to the GM, and the GM goes to the owner. It is a big change for sure. If anything, that gives even more power to Brandon Beane, but every single team has a different type of structure in the NFL. We'll talk about the Giants here in a second, but John Harbaugh, one of his musts in his contract with the Giants was that I do not want to report to the GM. I want to talk directly to the owner. And again, having the ear of the owner is a very, very big deal. Like we just said with Brandon Beane, when you're able to have those conversations with the owner day in and day out, talk to him about how everything is going, and there is no buffer in between you, if you're able to build a strong relationship with the guy, the chances of you being, sticking around a little bit longer than maybe you should definitely helps you out. So that's kind of the whole thing that's going on over here. Keep in mind the Pagula family, they own 2 different teams. They have the Buffalo Sabres, they have the Buffalo Bills. So that could be part of it as well, where they have entrusted Brandon Beane so much that they want him to run the organization while they have a different team and also a new stadium coming up. And obviously all these different factors going on around the organization and the stadiums and all of that.
Brandon Beane preceded by Doug Whaley. He was infamous for cutting Fred Jackson, which the Buffalo fans were not a very big fan of. Also the Tyrod Taylor benching. Let's go ahead and spin it a little bit back, actually. We like to spin forward normally. We're going to spin backwards here because if it hadn't been for the divisional round and the results of the Buffalo game against the Broncos, Sean McDermott still has a job. Yes. Of course, that is not the case today here on Monday, January 19th. Let's go ahead and talk about what we saw from the divisional round this past weekend. Do you want to go ahead and start with what the takeaways are from the Broncos and the Bills? And of course, that's going to be headlined with what we saw take place or didn't see take place to Bo Nix.
A couple things first. The Bills, the officiating in this game, the Bills obviously took offense to it. I actually agree with Sean McDermott in one thing when it comes to all this. He said in his post-game press conference that, hey, I just wanted the game to slow down for a second. I wanted the referee of the game to go under the covers and go talk to New York and have a discussion and figure out exactly what just happened. The reason I agree with him on that is because we had a bit of a similar situation earlier this season in that Ravens-Steelers game with this Aaron Rodgers pass to himself, which he caught, which might have been intercepted, which initially was called an interception, but they all regrouped and the referee in that game went under the cover and they did everything and they spoke to New York and eventually it was overturned to a catch by Aaron Rodgers, if you guys remember that. So this was a bit of a similar situation where it's like, Brandon Cook's catch, no catch, interception, what is going on over here? And they just spoke to New York and made a decision and moved on. Sean was like, hey, could you guys go under the covers? I'm going to call a timeout, give you more time. Just make sure everything was all right over here because this is the difference between winning and losing, our season going on, our season ending. And of course, now we know his job being still alive or him being fired. So that was part of the thing over here with Sean McDermott, which I kind of agree with because the officiating all year, it just feels like it's a mess and people don't truly know what the exact operation is. Like what exactly is replay assist for? What exactly is New York for? When do they get involved in all of this? we don't know the exact rules. It feels like it's all being made up on the fly. The NFL then has, their head of officiating go on NFL Network the next day to explain his reasoning. It just feels like it's got to be watered down this offseason and let everyone understand all the rules and how it works so we all understand all of it. Because I was getting texts during that game. There is zero consistency when it comes to the rules of all of this. And Sean does have a point when it comes to that. When it comes to the ruling on the field, I did think that was an interception. But again, there's a whole thing over here about just, could we do things the same way every single time whenever there are instances of stuff like this happening instead of it happening on the fly? So that's when it comes to the injury stuff, when it comes to the replay stuff. As for the game itself, the Bo Nix thing, as somebody who covers news and is on top of this stuff basically every single day, that is one of the most stunning, jaw-dropping things I've ever seen, ever, as an announcement in a post-game press conference. And people who know me, you see my X account, I am posting videos of press conferences all the time. I watch a lot of them. The amount of press conferences I'm listening to with my AirPod in my ear is outrageous. So I just, listen to the Sean Payton one. I listen to the Nick Bonino one. I listen to all the stuff after the game to hear what they got to say, see if there's a good soundbite to post. And I see the Broncos basically post again on their X page, Sean Payton is at the podium. And I was like, wasn't he already at the podium like a half hour ago? Why is he coming back? Is this a glitch? Is it a mistake? Was it a scheduled tweet that accidentally went out? And I start playing the video and I hear what he's saying. And it's just, I couldn't believe the words were coming out. And I was like, is this actually real right now? And I didn't have a picture ready. I was like, breaking, Bo Nix fractured ankle. His season is over. And of course, everyone is going nuts. Everyone thinks like, you're hacked. It's fake. What are you talking about? Where is this from? Even after I tweeted it, I was like, did that actually just happen? And of course, everybody else who's covering the game or other national people start tweeting it as well. And it's like, what happens now? And I remember, okay, Jarrett Stidham is the backup quarterback. And the amount of things that I've heard, and there's the tweet about how it all happened. The Jarrett Stidham thing about all of this, and I give credit to Sean Payton a lot, and I tweeted this the next day, and people thought, oh, how much are you getting paid to tweet? Like, I'm not getting paid to tweet this. The way Sean Payton handled all of that was the most masterful way of handling that type of a situation. And comes in, announces the news, delivers everything, and he knows that this is news that is not going to survive in time for him to announce it to the team. Some of the players already left the locker room. They went home. It's obviously gigantic news. Your franchise quarterback is done for the playoffs. And instead of having somebody break it and everybody finds out on the internet, everybody panics and people are like, go sign Drew Brees or go sign Tom Brady or whatever. No, I'm going to put my confidence in Jarrett Stidham. Let everybody know we like Jarrett Stidham. He's the guy. Explain what happened to Bo Nix, crack a couple of jokes here and there, and move forward and let everybody know this is what's going on. And I thought it was handled really well. The Jarrett Stidham part, I think people don't fully know maybe who this guy is. Maybe you've heard the name. Former 4th-round pick, drafted by the Patriots, the team he's going to play for now, traded to the Raiders, where Josh McDaniels was, who drafted him in New England as well, starts over there after Derek Carr was benched because of his salary, actually plays pretty well in the 2 games he plays. And the important part over here is the Raiders wanted to keep Jarrett Stidham. They wanted to sign him back. Sean Payton, his first ever move in free agency with the Broncos was signing Jarrett Stidham to a 2-year deal. And not only did they sign him to a 2-year deal, they've signed him to an extension ever since. Now, he has not necessarily played much, but he's obviously been taking all the reps and practicing and doing all the stuff and learning the Sean Payton playbook and being around Davis Webb. He and Bo Nix both went to Auburn. I mean, Nix went to a bunch of colleges, but they were both there at one point. So there's a thing over here where, like, no, Jarrett Stidham is going to be fine. And the thing about this that makes it so interesting to me, Ben, is the fact that we've watched the Broncos all year long. Yeah. Bo Nix has had some awesome games. The Packers game, in my opinion, was his best complete game of the year. He's had a bunch of games this year where he's a no-show with 2 quarters, 3 quarters. If Jarrett Stidham can just give them 4 quarters of just consistent game-managing football with that defense, I don't think this is a game where it's a slam dunk the Patriots win. Maybe that sounds crazy, but Jarrett Stidham is someone who's done it before. He's played before, and he's been in the system now for a number of years, learning and soaking it all in from Sean Payton and Davis Webb and everyone else on that staff. So I'm not exactly the type of person here who everyone's like, oh, it's a Mickey Mouse win over here for the New England Patriots. It might end up being that, but this is home field advantage for Denver. It's a team over here that has a really, really good defense. It's a team that played on Saturday while the Patriots played on Sunday, so there's an extra day over here. I just don't think it's as easy as everyone is making it out to be. Now, does the NFL prefer Drake May in the Super Bowl over Jarrett Stidham? Probably. But I just think this is a game where I think it could definitely be a little bit more interesting than people think it's going to be.
Pretty crazy stat here, Ari, from my friend Dante over at NFL Network. When Jarrett Stidham starts this Sunday, it will have been 749 days since his last regular season pass attempt. That will smash the record for most consecutive days without a pass attempt and entering a playoff start. Previously, Joe Webb, 370 days prior to the 2012 wildcard loss versus the Packers. That is a long time without stepping on an NFL field to attempt a pass.
I'm trying to remember what the Joe Webb situation was in Minnesota. I'm trying to remember who got injured, but I do remember that game really well. But Joe Webb was, no offense to Joe Webb, but he's not really comparison to Jarrett Stidham, who has been there and has done a lot and has played before in the NFL. That's the most important.
He wasn't. Remember when because he signed up and he was like, I thought I was going to be the starter.
Yep. It was a 3-way competition. It was Jarrett Stidham, it was Bo Nix, and it was Zach Wilson. And Bo Nix was just good in the preseason. Like, he did more than enough to win that starting job as the first round pick. And of course, being a first round pick rookie, you kind of have the edge already. He was not happy about it. But these two guys, there's a picture floating around the internet. They've known each other for a while. Like, there's a picture of them together when Bo was a high school kid, I think it might have been. So like, and Jared was in college.
All these passing academies, everybody knows everybody, or the Manning Academy and all that
like
stuff.
That I'll just say that quarterback room is very strong, like very, very strong. There's a picture going on over here online of Bo Nix on the floor on Saturday after the game, being consoled by, and if you see who it is, it's Jarrett Stidham, Sam Ehlinger, Davis Webb, and Bo Nix's dad. So like that's basically the quarterback's room, and of course his father. So like that room is very tight. And for Sean, I think he's going to lean on his defense in this game, and Jared just play turnover free. And if you're able to do that, I think this game could be a little bit more interesting than people think. That's probably my main takeaway in all this. I would love to see Bo Nix get his moment. It would be two quarterbacks who were drafted last year, 2024 quarterback class. It would be really, really fun. It's not going to happen, unfortunately, but I don't think the Broncos are dead the way some people are saying they are.
All right, let's get to these other games. Where do you want to go next? Which game do you want to talk about here?
I guess let's talk about the last game we saw. Let's talk about the Rams and Bears game. Crazy game. Every Bears game this year. I'm not even a fan, obviously, of either of these teams. But when you watch these games, it's like so intense that you feel like you're a fan of one. Like, I have no rooting interest one way or the other, but it's like, holy cow, what's going to happen next? Like, you really have that feeling watching every single Bears game so far this year. The Caleb Williams play to Cole Kmet on that fourth down to tie the game is one of the most incredible plays I saw all season long. And, you know, the Rams, of course, win the game. The Cam Curl, former NFL Spotlight guest, getting that interception to set them up over here in overtime for the Harrison Mevis field goal. But part of me wonders, where does that Caleb Williams play go down in history? Like, I'm a big history guy. Like, is it going to be remembered or not? And, you know, he was asked about it after the game, and he's like, yeah, it was cool in the moment, but, you know, it's not something that I'm really, you know, thinking about much right now. I kind of have this feeling that as crazy of a play it was, obviously it would have more merit if they won that game. But Ben, I kind of want your take on this. Do you feel like that is a play where it falls into, like, you know, the Jermaine Kearse Super Bowl catch in the Marshawn Lynch no handoff game, or the Julio Jones catch, which was insane in the Super Bowl, but 28-3 happens, no one cares about it, or, you know, Aaron Rodgers, Jeff Janis in the Cardinals game, which, like, they lose the game, everyone forgets about it. Like, do you feel like
that's what it's going to be? Unfortunately, that's what it's going to be, is who is the victor, and can we talk about it another week because they're in the next round of the playoffs? It will go down in our minds, and I'm sure a lot of Bears fans will remember it, but I don't know how much we'll be talking about it in 5 years.
It sucks because that is one of the most. I mean, I'm watching it here in the office. I was watching the game, and it's in the corner over here on my screen. I was like, all right, I have the tweet ready. NFC champion, like it's all set, whatever. And my jaw just dropped. I was like, oh, like, I didn't even like. Usually, I tweet videos right away. I didn't even have like anything. I was like, I
Yeah.
couldn't believe what I just saw. I could not believe what just happened. It
Have
was.
you listened to the Kevin Harlan call, Spotlight
I
guest, Kevin Harlan's
hilarious.
radio call?
I have.
You
I
wouldn't
have.
believe it if you didn't see it, which is hilarious to say on a radio call. But it was just, I mean, it was just, he's dropping back. And it was like another 5 yards, another 10 yards, and then just, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel for the Bears fans. What a roller coaster of a season. But goodness, ultimately, you're going to walk away saying, yeah, we made some real progress this year. And Ben Johnson's the real deal.
Yeah, everyone deserves Rams Seahawks part 3. Of course, we all know the Thursday night game that was, what was it, week 15 or whatever it was. That game is going to be great. It's the Bears season. It was one of the more magical ones that we had this year. All the incredible moments, all the comebacks they had, everything they had this year. And, we spoke about this maybe a few weeks ago about you really can never. It was with the Lions, talking about them, about after every playoff loss everyone says, oh, the future is bright. Like, you never know what's going to happen the next year. I kind of feel confident about the Bears, though. Like, I feel like this team is going to be here for a while. I mean, that's why we have this coaching search going on right now around the NFL. Everyone is trying to get an offensive minded coach, because if you have that guy with the quarterback, you're set up for years to come, and you don't have to worry if you have a defensive minded guy with the offensive coordinator who lead. Like, you never have to worry about that, which Sean McDermott and Brian Daboll kind of had in Buffalo, right? So Chicago has it. They have Ben Johnson. They have Caleb Williams. The way Caleb spoke to reporters last night and spoke again to reporters today, spoke again about just how much Ben Johnson has meant to him. And this was like year one of Ben putting his fingertips on the roster. Like, we saw the interior of the offensive line, the Drew Dalmans, the Joe Toonies, the Jonah
Shout out
Jacksons.
Joe Tooney, by the way, too. Performance.
Left tackle, again, like he did last year, not his natural position, but doing it. But that he barely put his imprints on the defense yet. And I think this offseason, that's going to be him trying to find his type of defensive player. So I'm expecting some turnover there on the roster when it comes to the defense. I think the future of DJ Moore also is probably up in the air. We'll talk more over here about offseason stuff to come over here. This is the Rams moment. They moved on, but the Bears, they're up to something special. The NFC North is going to be awesome for years to come. I'm happy Matt LaFleur got an extension, by the way, because the rivalry is going to be there. He wants it to be a rivalry. It's great. So I'm excited about where the future is. And that was a game where if you told the Bears fan before the season started, hey, you'll make it to the divisional round, it's going to be a home playoff game, but you lose that game, they would have signed up for it. So it probably stings for sure to lose, but I just hope that Caleb touchdown does not get forgotten in history, because that is just one of the craziest plays in that moment. He's had 2 playoff games, Ben, and 2 insane, freaking crazy 4th down plays so far. I mean, there's more to come over here in history when it comes to the Bears.
God, how good was that rookie draft class of quarterbacks? I mean, just absolutely insane. All -1. We'll let you guess who it is. Anyway, let's talk about we got 2 more games here to get to. Let's get out of the way. We'll save Texans Patriots for the last one. Seahawks 49ers. Not a lot to go through.
I mean, we've spoken a lot about the Seahawks here on the show. It's just the roster they've built, awesome. John Schneider deserves a lot of flowers, and they now have a chance over here to go to the Super Bowl as the #1 seed. And Sam Darnold, of all people, being their quarterbacks, and it's pretty cool for a guy who was doubted so much. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of internet conversation about the Vikings. They should have kept him. They made a mistake. Why would they do that and all that? Seattle realized it right away, traded Geno Smith for him, but it's really traded away Geno Smith to go out and get him. But it's really every single roster move they've made. And we'll talk more about the Seahawks here this week. Again, we're going to go live tomorrow once again here, and we're going to have more shows over here throughout the rest of the playoffs. I do want to talk about the 49ers for a second, because a part of me, and I said this also last year, a part of me feels bad a little bit for Kyle Shanahan. I'll explain what I mean. Kyle Shanahan is one of the most innovative minds the NFL has ever seen, ever. And you think about, the Kyle Shanahan offense, the Kyle Shanahan tree, the amount of coordinators and coaches that have come off because of him. I mean, we always see that Washington Redskins staff that is always brought up with the Sean McVays and the Matt LaFleurs and the Mike McDaniels and all that. Obviously, his dad had a very big part of it. If you go to Kyle Shanahan's Wikipedia page, there are just no accolades there. There's an AP Assistant Coach of the Year award there, and that is about it. And part of that bothers me because he has meant so much to the game of football, but he has nothing really to show for it whenever you go there. And what I mean by that is the next generation of football fans, are they going to realize just how important Kyle Shanahan was to the game of football? And, he's had the 2 Super Bowl losses, and he had the Super Bowl loss in 28-3. And there it is, Ben. I mean, Sporting News Coach of the Year and AP NFL Assistant Coach of the Year. That's all he has right now. And he might win Coach of the Year this year. We'll see. It's not a foregone conclusion yet. But when you think about just how important this man is for the game of football and how much he's done and how brilliant his mind is and what he's done with this 49ers team, which people might forget, but before Kyle Shanahan got there, they were recycling coaches after Jim Harbaugh left to, Jim Tomsula and Chip Kelly. Everybody was one and done. It was out of control. And he brought a stabilized place there. And he's the one who hired John Lynch. Kyle Shanahan has final say on everything in San Francisco. And for the most part, they have been one of the better teams in the NFC every single time, unless they had some crazy injuries, which they've had a couple of years like that. And this year was one of those years, and they somehow made it to the divisional round, somehow had a chance to win the number 1 seed in the NFC going into week 18. His coaching job over the years and has been unbelievable. And I just wonder if he never wins that Super Bowl, are people in the next generation, talking about 15, 20, 25 years from now, going to realize how important he was. It's why, I've tried to get Mike Shanahan on our NFL Spotlight show, and for whatever reason, his team doesn't want to do it. Mike Shanahan should be a Hall of Famer. I don't know why he isn't, but what those 2 people, Mike and Kyle, have meant for the game of football is so big and so important. I wish they would get more recognition for it, especially Mike. But for Kyle, with no Super Bowl yet, and again, there's still chances for him to get one here in the future. It just bothers me when you go on a Wikipedia page like his, and there's really nothing there to exactly say how important this man was. I don't know, Ben, like what you think of that take, but that is one that has been on my mind for a year now or 2 years now since that last Super Bowl loss. And to see him keep on falling short, there's a part of me that is like, oh, I feel bad.
He was a spotlight guest on for us, and he's a friend of mine as well. Logan Ryan, former Super Bowl Patriots, 2-time Super Bowl champion. He raves about Kyle. Yeah. It was a short stint, with the 49ers, but just the amount of praise that he has. And it feels like this isn't just like a one-off thing. I think players really respond. I think that's why you see so many guys stick around there, except for maybe Brandon Ayuk. They might have a different relationship. But I mean, even to his press conferences, to a lot of stuff that goes on with Kyle, it just very much feels like he just feels a little different than a lot of the other head coaches. And you see the tree that is sprouted from a lot of what he has done. And, it does suck that we don't see quite as many accolades for a guy that, again, and I don't have a horse in the race. I'm not a 49ers fan, but I feel like both of us can sit back and objectively say, like, oh, we understand the value he brings to this team.
Yeah, it's so big, and it's one of those things where I want to see him win one at some point. There's the first time they made the Super Bowl, which was the 2020 year. There was a moment at the NFC Championship podium, which I think was Terry Bradshaw Fox had the microphone, and Jed York got the NFC Championship trophy, and Mike Shanahan was on the podium, and he gave the trophy to him. And then him and Kyle had this moment where they hugged each other, and it was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like these 2 guys, the amount of coaches in the NFL that have come because of Mike and Kyle, it's so lengthy, and we could go through it here. I mean, it's so many names, and from your favorite teams, almost everybody has somebody who has come from that tree. And it just you want to see them have the ultimate success and get to the mountaintop. So people in future generations kind of remember how important these guys were. So I still think Mike should be in the Hall of Fame. It sounds like Bill Belichick isn't getting in this year as the coach, but Mike has been passed on a number of times for whatever reason. I don't get why. But those 2 guys, it's something when it comes to the history of football that I feel like they deserve more of it. And up until now, they're not going to get it. Everyone in our generation is going to be like, oh, he was the offensive coordinator for 28-3. He lost 2 Super Bowls to Patrick Mahomes. He had leads in the fourth quarter in both those games. One of them was in overtime, and he never won. So I don't want that to be the way Kyle Shanahan goes down. Again, he has so many years left. I'm sure he does. But it's just like one of those things where it's like, Kyle deserves to have one of those.
It feels like Mike's inevitably going to get it. Two-time Super Bowl champion.
It's been so long. It's been too long. It does not make sense.
Yeah, assistant coach, also won one national champion, from back in those days. But anyway, we'll talk more Seahawks, as we go forward here. Shout out Mike McDonald, like just love him. Love. But anyway, one more game left we haven't talked about, and I'm assuming we're going to get a little bit of Mike Vrabel praise in here since we're talking about coaching.
Mike Vrabel went a year without a job. How?
Yeah.
Like what? I don't get it. And it's not like he didn't want to coach. He wanted to coach. He interviewed with 3 or 4 different teams. I don't get like what? And
I just sat there thinking the exact same thing during the game. I was like, this guy was not offered a job last cycle. Like, oh, and by the way, he's got a very good chance of making it to the Super Bowl now in his first season with the team that he used to play.
And the team that fired him is trying to find his replica right now, which just tells you everything you need to know. So, it's unbelievable what they've done in year 1. And it's really every button they've kind of pressed over here with this team. And again, we'll go through the rosters and we'll talk about the players. We'll do more shows here. But Drake May's ascension, the offensive line, and how they were able to repair that in one offseason. I mean, again, we see teams around the NFL who have struggled with offensive line for 5-10 years. I mean, I think about the Giants this year was probably the first year they've had a normal offensive line since their Super Bowl run in 2011. Like some teams just cannot figure it out. Mike Vrabel came in. He is very involved with the offensive line and draft Will Campbell, draft Jared Wilson, sign Garrett Bradbury, sign Morgan Moses. Boom, that's 4 out of the 5. And then they had Michael Owenu. Boom, it's all fixed. They signed Stephon Diggs, which had some criticism, but he has played a gigantic role. You look at some of the other players they added, Travion Henderson in the draft. Other players, Kyle Williams, the receiver, has played a role here this year. They're hopeful Matt Collins, who they signed, is going to come back. And then defensively, again, a bunch of free agent pickups. And the thing about their free agent pickups, and we spoke about this at some point early on in the year, they didn't just sign a bunch of guys who, you hear a lot of executives say free agency waters is very, very dangerous because why would the old team allow him to become a free agent? Teams want to keep good players. Why would they let them out the building? They signed a lot of the players who have familiarity either with Mike or somebody else on the staff, like Robert Spillane, for example. Josh McDaniels was his head coach in Las Vegas. Harold Landry, his head coach in Tennessee, was Mike Vrabel. Carlton Davis, he was in Detroit with the Terrell Williams, the defensive coordinator who they hired, who of course is dealing with prostate cancer right now. So they signed a bunch of players who they kind of know from other places. The only one who was the biggest addition of them all, who they had no familiarity with, was Milton Williams, who they paid a lot of money for, who has been awesome all year long. But they did a lot of homework on him from the day Mike Vrabel was hired until the day, of course, they went crazy to try to go sign him. And they understood the Eagles would love to retain Milton Williams. They're not letting him out the door because he's a bad player or a bad person. It's the fact that they have Jalen Carter and they have Jordan Davis, and they're kind of cap-strapped from a position of paying that type of a player that type of money. That's why when Milton Williams became a free agent, we saw Carolina and Arizona and New England and a couple of other teams pushing really, really hard to get this player because that caliber of a player never makes it to the open market, and they got him. But they were very strategic of how they went around with signing these players, and they've had the energy of the head coach this entire year, the aggressiveness of this head coach this entire year. They are fully bought in. We had Jalen Hawkins, their safety, on the show here about 3-4 weeks ago, and he has had a different head coach every single year of his career, from Atlanta, where he had Dan Quinn year 1, Arthur Smith year 2, year 3 he was in, with the Chargers and Brandon Staley. Year 4 he had Gerard Merrill. Year 5 now with Mike Vrabel. He has said he has never seen a coach like Mike Vrabel. This team is as bought in as it gets. They're hungry every single week. And the one thing I really love and respect about Mike Vrabel, and I've said this on the show as well, is that he is the type of coach where he never goes too far. In other words, he could be asked a question in a press conference about, hey, your team just won and they're the number, for example, during the year, they're the number one seed. How do you feel about this? And he would be like, we're right now here on a Monday. We're only thinking about today and practice, and that's it. His team has taken that same mindset where, yeah, we're allowed to have fun. We're allowed to enjoy our wins, but we never think too far and too far away from what the goal is right now here today. And it's really cool. I mean, he is the most, listen to his interviews, listen to his press conferences. He never thinks too far away from where they are right now. And the team is bought in when it comes to all of that. And here they are now in the AFC Championship game with a chance to go to the Super Bowl in year one with Mike Vrabel after last year being such a disaster in year one of Gerard Mayo. I think we should talk about the Texans for a second.
Yep.
Their loss, CJ Stroud was abysmal in the first half. In the game versus Steelers, there was the fumbling issue. In this game was interception issue. The Texans have some massive decisions to make this offseason. CJ Stroud becomes extension eligible. 50-year option, they'll pick up probably $25 million. That's not a lot for a quarterback. Do you sign him to an extension or not? And the reason, some fan bases will be like, no, we have 2 more years. Why not? Nick Cassero, their GM, has a big history over here in Houston of giving extensions right away while they become eligible because he wants to get ahead of the market. There have been some buzz in league circle that the Texans have already started talking to his agent about an extension. That's out there. We'll see if they redecide on all of that up here after these last couple of games or whatnot. But D'Amico Ryans stayed committed to him after the game. No surprise. Will Anderson said all the right stuff as well as his teammate. He's also eligible for an extension this offseason. He's going to try to aim to become the highest paid non-quarterback in football, which right now is $47 million per year. So that is 2 gigantic contracts that Houston has to think about here this offseason. They are now, I believe, 0-8 in divisional round games in their history. They have never made it to a conference championship game in their history. Now 0-3 under D'Amico Ryans. They win the wild card game pretty easily. All of them have been blowouts. They lose the following week, all 3 tries so far.
There was no way they could bench Stroud during that game. I know you and I were texting back and forth. There was no way it could have happened. Probably should have happened. You probably would have had a better chance with Davis Mills out there. I understand the levity that goes with that, and you can't, especially if it didn't work out, you couldn't do that. But
so I was thinking about that. That's an optics thing, and that's why you don't do it. It's an optics thing all the way. It
wasn't the win, though.
Right? Davis Mills was 3-0 as a starter this year. Like that big win streak they had, he was a big part of it. If you bench him and you lose, and now that your season is over, that's the final taste that everybody has of the Texans season. Going
to D'Amico all of a sudden, a guy who's an amazing coach. All of a sudden, people are, what are you doing?
So stupid. Yeah. So going into a 50-year option decision and going into a potential extension negotiation, benching him, and then of course you still lose. It just doesn't make sense. They ended up like punting the ball away with like 4 minutes left and 1 timeout. Like they waved the white flag in this game. It just they knew they didn't have it that day. And again, part of it is the Patriots, what they've done this year and the way the brand of football they play. And a shout out to the defensive coordinator who is Zach Kerr, who many people don't even know who that is, who had to take over in week 2 or week 1, whatever it was, because Terrell Williams was unfortunately diagnosed with prostate cancer. This guy is an inside linebackers coach who is now calling plays for Mike Vrabel, and what that defense has been doing this year is unbelievable. So shout out to him as well for the work he's done.
Yeah. Shout out to Stretch as well. John Stryker,
shout out to
former NFL Spotlight guest. He has been, I'm sure, moving a whole lot of things behind the scenes to help get that team situated where they are and all the different situational football that takes place there. If you've never watched that one, go back and watch it. It is a very, very fun listen. I do want to get back to, for a few minutes here, some of the other coaching moves that took place. We've spoken a little bit about Stefanski. I wanted to get into it a little bit more. The Falcons, obviously, this job was one that I think a lot of people looked at as there's a lot of really good pieces here. The quarterback situation's still a little wonky with the, Kirk Cousins still around. Michael Penix is injured. What do you make of the decision to go with a guy who does have that 2-time coach of the year, experience under his belt? He's dealt with a variety of quarterbacks. Do you think that this was a very smart strategic move by the Falcons to go with this type of coach as opposed to somebody that was maybe a little bit more green?
The entire time it was known that they're going after an offensive mind because they wanted to retain Jeff Ulbrich. In interviews with teams, they were like, "Hey, let's listen to the staff you have in mind, but us as an organization, we would love to keep Jeff Ulbrich as our defensive coordinator and his staff. Like that's what we want. Is that something you're okay with?" Kevin Stefanski was one of them who was okay with it. And then the important thing over here was they have a new power structure as well. They're going with Matt Ryan as president. The GM is still to be announced, and then of course the head coach, and then Matt Ryan. They all report to Matt Ryan, and then Matt Ryan reports to the owner in Arthur Blank. Basically, whatever is going on underneath them. Kevin was fine with all of that. He had a good camaraderie right away with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan liked him. They've crossed paths in the past. Of course, Matt Ryan for a year called games for CBS before he did studio work. He called a couple of Browns games, so he's had those, the network meetings before the games as well with Kevin Stefanski. So they've obviously seen each other here and there. They both have some roots from Philadelphia growing up there. So that's something where your first conversation in an interview could go really smoothly. So right away they hit it off over here. And again, they were always looking for an offensive mind. And the situation is there's parts of it that is very similar to Cleveland, which I say that because when Kevin took over the Browns, the most dominant thing they had was their offensive line, with everything they had over there with the Joel Bitonios and the Wyatt Tellers and the Jack Conklins and those type of players that they had, even coaches at center. The biggest strength the Falcons probably have that not many people talk about is their offensive line from left to right with Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, Ryan Nazeal, Chris Lindstrom, who in my mind is the best guard in football, and then Kayla McGarry, who's going to be back next year from injury. And if he's able to have that type of an offensive line, the one thing that Kevin Stefanski is known for the most in league circles before he became a head coach is his ability in the run game. And you might have the best running back in all of football, Bijan Robinson. So when he went in there to interview and he spoke about all of this, I'm sure the Falcons were like, all right, this could probably work if we make this hire. So I'm sure they were blown away by that. And then they quickly made the hire, the second head coach hire in the cycle. And one note about all of this going on right now, I don't know if the Tennessee Titans are being used or not, but the amount of coaches who have had the Titans interview on the docket and then they get hired before that is kind of crazy. I don't know if that's agents are setting it up like that, but John Harbaugh took the Giants job with the Titans scheduled to interview him the next day. Kevin Stefanski took the Falcons job with the Titans scheduled to interview him the next day. Jeff Hafley is interviewing today with the Dolphins for the second time, and people think he's getting that job. Tomorrow, he's scheduled to interview with the Tennessee Titans. I don't know what's up with that. Everyone thinks Tennessee is going with Matt Nagy in league circles, but it does feel like the Titans are being used a lot over here in negotiations as some of their finalists going to other teams instead of taking that next interview with the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, are we back? We had a light freeze there for a second.
Not sure what that was. I was talking about the GM. Did you guys hear all that?
No, not at all.
All right. They have one more job to do here in Atlanta, and that is hiring a GM. And a lot of people in league circles believe that former NFL Spotlight guest Ian Cunningham is a top candidate for this job. So we will see what ends up happening.
Bears assistant GM.
Bears assistant GM. Josh Williams, a 49er scout, is also a top candidate there, but they are currently regrouping after hiring Kevin Stefanski. They're looping him in on everything, and that hire should be coming up over here in the next couple days as well.
And before we get out of here or we get another freeze, I do want to talk about the fact that after some light speculation that maybe things are going to fall through, a la McDaniels and the Colts or some of the other stuff, John Harbaugh did sign, I presume, on the dotted line with the New York Giants on, I think it was Saturday, right? They got it all worked out. You spoke a little bit earlier about the logistics of how he is going to be reporting directly to the owner as opposed to going through Joe Shane. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the other details that you think they were working through to finally get this on paper done? People can stop the speculation.
First of all, this was as ownership driven as it gets because John Harbaugh, who had so much leverage, basically got everything he wanted. It's a 5-year deal. It's worth $100 million. There's also more money available in incentives for playoffs and stuff like that. In addition, he essentially got that he gets to directly report to the owner, which is not something the Giants have had much in their history. Even when Bill Parcells was there, he would go directly to the GM. When Tom Coughlin was there, he would go directly to the GM. All the recent head coaches from Dayball and Joe Judge and Shermer and McAdoo all went to the GM. This is a break from all of that. And that is what John Harbaugh had in Baltimore. He reported directly to Stephen Bisciotti. He did not report directly to Eric DaCosta, the GM, even though they worked really, really well together. That's the way it was structured. John Harbaugh had a big say in personnel in Baltimore as well. He's going to have that say over here with the Giants. It does not mean he's not going to work with Joe Schoen. They're going to work together over here when it comes to all of this. But John knew he had the leverage, and overall, the ownership, John Mara, Steve Tisch, Chris Mara, who is John's brother, they all made it pretty clear early on. This is the guy that we want. We want to stabilize this organization. You're somebody who's won before. You've seen it from one of the very best organizations in football for 18 years with the Baltimore Ravens. We want you running our organization the way you did it. And a big part of it for John was, if you want that, I got to be talking to you guys directly. Like, I don't want to have a buffer over here with Joe in between. So that got done. They're going to try this whole thing with Joe Schoen. We'll see how it ends up going over here with him as GM. But make no mistake about it, John is very, very much involved with the voice when it comes to a lot of the stuff moving forward with the New York Giants. That's the way he wanted it. He got it. He knew the leverage he had, and that deal is done. His press conference is scheduled for tomorrow at noon Eastern, and that should be ushering in a new era of New York Football Giants here in my hometown of New York. So we'll see how that all goes up here. But Giants fans have been asking for it. They got worried. Again, I'll recommend everyone to read this Ian O'Connor article at The Athletic, who details all of it. Fascinating stuff on the record of John Harbaugh, on the record of Chris Mara, on the record, I believe, with the agent Brian Harlan, who basically tells him that even though John accepted the Giants deal with no contract he had done, he was still talking to the Titans about, hey, we're not sure what's going on over here, like, just in case you want to jump back in. So fascinating stuff and all of that, but he has officially signed on the dotted line. He is the new New York Giants head coach.
And with that, I think we wrap things up for today. But tomorrow, we're going to be back. We're going to be doing a very special episode of our Tuesday Spotlight series. We're going to be spotlighting the head coaching search and the updates going around some of the different candidates, some of the different teams that are still looking to fill those positions. It should be fun. I'm really looking forward to going through it with you. I know you're going to have your notebook ready and you've got your spreadsheets of all the different interviews and that kind of stuff. And we'll really dig into who some of these candidates are and where they're really getting looks at.
I think, yeah, we'll definitely do that tomorrow. It's really exciting. I could see at least one hire coming in before tomorrow. That could be happening here today. So that could be happening here, but a lot of moving parts right now around the NFL. All these teams, second interviews. The Raiders, by the way, their search is going on right now. They moved their entire operation today to Miami because they're watching the game tonight with Fernando Mendoza. So they're all there. Tom Brady is there. John Spytek is there. They're doing interviews today with like Mike McDaniel and a bunch of people in a Miami hotel or something. So like this stuff is all over the place right now around the NFL. The Sean McDermott thing threw a wrench into some teams over here because they're like, oh, we got to interview Sean McDermott now. So a lot happening here. That is going to be our special Tuesday edition of NFL Spotlight here tomorrow.
What's your prediction here, Ari? What team fills the job, their head coaching job first, and which is the last?
Okay, so first, obviously, we already had two, but I think Miami and Tennessee are getting very close. I think that's coming up very soon. I would venture to say that Pittsburgh, it's whoever takes a coach from a Super Bowl team. I mean, that's really what it is.
True. Okay.
So, so last year the Saints were last because they were waiting for Kellen Moore. So, like, I don't want to include that in all of this, but I think Pittsburgh and Buffalo, if I had to guess, are going to take the longest of the year, not including the Super Bowl stuff.
Which team do you think is being the most patient then? If that's the right way of putting it then.
It's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has always been the most patient team. I mean, I said this last time.
From our two examples, technically, I guess.
I mean, I said this last time, but like their GM search when Kevin Colbert retired was 20 deep and it took them like a month and a half. Like it
Yeah,
took them so
extensive.
long. So the Rooney Rule is named after obviously the Rooney family. Like they go through the search. And I said this last time in 07, when they hired Mike Tomlin, nobody had Mike Tomlin as a head coaching candidate. Their intention was to promote their offensive line coach to head coach. But the Rooney family, as they do, they did a full search and they found this Mike Tomlin guy. And I was like, this guy's great. Let's hire him. So there's that's something that could happen over here in Pittsburgh. And that's the right way to do it. And I give them credit for that. So I think it's going to be them, but it's still very, very hard to tell because each team is different. Each team reacts differently to other teams.
I love it, Ari. We hit our hour mark. I'm going to get out of here if you want to take everyone else home.
All right, that will do it here for our Monday, January 19th edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. Thank you for joining us live. If you're watching this live right now, if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. And we will be back here tomorrow around 4 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to go live once again. Join us here on NFL Spotlight on my X page at My Sports Update. We will see you then.